Greetings from Faith Lutheran Church. My name is Jeff Pitzer here with another Thursday devotion. I've been running through a little mini series on worship. This is week 3. The first week we looked at Mary, the sister of Martha, when she was caught in the act of adultery and she was going to be stoned. And it's the famous scene where Jesus tells the Jewish religious leaders, "The one who is without sin cast the first stone." And so we see her caught in her guilt and her shame before Jesus, very possibly knelt down at his feet. The second time, last week, we talked about when she was with her sister Martha in her house, and Martha was preparing the house because they were going to be having guests over. And she was very busy and getting frustrated because Mary was sitting at the feet of Jesus, listening to what he had to say. And Jesus said that Mary is very distracted and very busy with lots of things. Martha was, but Mary chose what is needed. She sat and listened to Jesus. And in our busy times, we need to listen to the voice of Jesus. We still need to be in a posture of worship, come before him, sit at his feet, and not be too distracted by the things of life. Today we come on a very familiar passage, the death of Lazarus, who was their brother. And so I'm going to pick it up in John 11. It's a lot of scripture here, so please bear with me. But we're going to read starting in verse 17 of chapter 11. When Jesus arrived, he found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb 4 days. Bethany was near Jerusalem, less than 2 miles away. Many of the Jews had come to Martha and Mary to comfort them about their brother. As soon as Martha had heard that Jesus was coming, she went to him, but Mary remained in the house. Then Martha said to Jesus, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother wouldn't have died. Yet even now I know whatever you ask from God, God will give you." "Your brother will rise again," Jesus told her. Martha said to him, "I know that he will rise again in the resurrection at the last day." Jesus said to her, "I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me, even if he dies, will live. Everyone who lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this?" "Yes, Lord," she told him. "I believe you are the Messiah, the Son of God, who comes into the world." So this is the first sister. And I'm not sure I don't believe the scripture says who's the younger and who's the older, but it sure seems to me that Martha is the older child, or has that personality of an older child, and Mary seems to have more the personality of the younger. I could be wrong on that. But Martha comes to him, and she asks this question, or she makes this statement, I should say. If you had been here, my brother would not have died. But then she goes on and has this theological conversation with Jesus and makes this incredible statement, believing that he is the resurrection and the life, and saying that she believes he is the Messiah, the Son of God, who comes into the world. She's obviously heartbroken, but she has this intellectual capacity to think through her theology and her beliefs at this time. But what we'll find is Mary's not there. She's just too emotionally distraught to get there. So the next part says, having said this, she went back, she being Martha, went back and called her sister Mary, saying in private, "The teacher is here and is calling for you." I love this passage. She says it in private. It's like a whisper in her ear. The teacher is here and is calling for you. In your dark times, do you hear Jesus calling for you? Is there anyone in your world, in your support system, that whispers privately to you saying, Jesus is here and he's calling for you? Sometimes in those dark times when we're just so distraught, we don't seem to hear God, we don't seem to see him. But I believe that he is there, and I believe that he is calling to you and to me during those times. So if you are in a time like that, I pray that you open your ears, open your eyes. Do you hear him calling? Do you have a friend or someone else who is telling you that he is here? As soon as Mary heard this, she got up quickly and went to him. Jesus had not yet come into the village, but was still in the place where Martha had met him. The Jews who were with her in the house, consoling her, saw that Mary got up quickly and went out. They followed her, supposing that she was going to the tomb to cry there. As soon as Mary came to where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet. Again, we see Mary at the feet of Jesus in this posture of worship. Even in this broken-hearted time, in this time that she just is so distraught, she doesn't really have any words to say. The only words she says here are the same words that Martha said. She falls at the feet of Jesus and told him, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." When Jesus saw her crying, and the Jews who had been with her crying, he was deeply moved in his spirit and troubled. "Where have you put him?" he asked. "Lord," they told him, "come and see." Jesus wept. Both sisters started with the same statement. If you had been here, my brother would not have died. I think we've all been in that place before where we've talked to God and it's like, God, why didn't you show up? Why didn't you stop this? Why didn't you save me or save them? Why didn't you do something? If you had been here, this wouldn't have happened. But it's interesting, his response to them is very different. He has a faith teaching moment with Martha, but with Mary, he just cries with her. Jesus, his heart breaks when our heart breaks. And I believe Mary was so distraught. All she could say was basically, why didn't you show up? Why didn't you stop this? And she's crying, and Jesus cries with her. I believe Jesus weeps when we weep. When our heart is broken, his heart is broken. Even though he knows that he is the resurrection and the life. He knows the miracle that's going to happen on the other side. Yet, because he knows that our heart hurts, he weeps with us. So I want to encourage us to be like Mary in those times when she is so brokenhearted that all she can do is cry and basically ask, why, God, why? She still comes to the feet of Jesus. It says she came quickly when she heard that he was calling for her. She falls at his feet and cries. If you are in a dark time, or when a dark time comes, because they always do, I pray that you follow the example of Mary, that even in the hardest times, that you come in a posture of worship at the feet of Jesus. Let him cry with you. Let him mourn with you. And then watch the miraculous resurrection power that he will display after that. Let us all worship like Mary. Blessings to you all the rest of this week, and I look forward to the time when we can finally come together and worship very soon. Blessings to you all.